Welcome to Twin City Talk. Today we are talking to Fire Chief Trey Mayo. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so I first heard you speak when I was doing the City of Winston-Salem University, and I learned, so much through the whole class, but I felt like your session, it was like stuff that I could immediately use. You shared such great information. Your whole team did.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that feedback.
Yeah, especially the stuff about like the differences between all the materials and stuff from, like the 70s to now. It's crazy how flammable everything is.
Yes. Yep. So much of, things have changed since yesterday, right? It seems like every day something is different from yesterday. But in terms of the fire service, what I describe as the modern fire environment, that built environment that we live in, so much has changed in the past 50 years, and those things that our houses were built of, and the things that we put in them 50 years ago were by and large natural products. It was wool, it was wood, various natural, flax and hemp and just things that occurred naturally, cotton. But due to changes in manufacturing processes and, the quest for things that dry fast and are color fast and are light, cheap to manufacture, most of what is in our homes today began its life in an oil well. Largely it is nylon, polyester, polyurethane, and vinyl. And not only is it in our homes, but those products are increasingly used to construct our homes. They are now building, engineered beams that are holding up roof and floor systems out of plastic. Research has shown that these all these synthetic materials, if you were to go in, the typical house in modern day America and scrape up a cubic foot of these things and kind of press them together and light them on fire, they burn with the same energy output as a cubic foot of gasoline, which is about 7.5 gallons. So it's scary to think about just how much fire load, how much potential fuel there is in the, and we're living in it, sleeping on it, walking around it, wearing it all the time.
So what are some top fire safety tips you give people?
Well, the cheap and easy thing is to make sure you have smoke alarms throughout your home on all levels. We do not recommend them in garages. We do not recommend them in kitchens. We do not recommend them inside or immediately outside of bathrooms because of the increased opportunity for false activations due to water vapor or burned toast, burned popcorn, vehicle exhaust, dust, those sorts of things. But on all levels of the conditioned spaces of your home, inside and outside of all sleeping areas. There is a national campaign called Close Before You Doze, where we encourage people to sleep with their bedroom doors shut. Research has shown that just a, kind of what I call a contractor-grade hollow core door will provide 18 or 20 minutes of fire protection in the event that you do, or 18 or 20 minutes of protection in the event that you have a fire in your home. So we really, and that also helps to compartmentalize the home. An additional change that has happened in the last 50 years is, homes were much more compartmentalized 50 years ago as opposed to how they are today with, we want a lot of natural light, we want open floor plans, we want to be able to stand at the stove or wash dishes and talk to the folks who were, our guests who are sitting in the living room, that sort of thing. And, that requires removal of walls frequently. So without walls, without doors, the house is less compartmentalized, and the pathways that fires have to spread from the room of origin into adjacent rooms is, those things that block that mechanism of fire spread 50 years ago, those are gone largely now in modern homes.
I was curious, what are the most common sources of fire? I'm sure things like candles, lit cigarettes, and so forth, but most common, and then also things that are surprising that a lot of people may not be aware of that start fires. I don't know, maybe they're electronics or things like that aren't, the cords are frayed or something, but I was curious about.
Well, I always, and it's a little bit of humor, but not completely. I always say the top 3 causes of fires are men, women, and children. But, on a more, data-driven level, by and large, cooking is the number 1 cause of fires in America. If people would stop cooking, we could reduce the incidence of fires in America. We could cut it in half immediately. So about half of all fires that start in the built environment in America start on the cooktop.
Anything in particular with the cooking? I mean, is it grease fire?
It is unattended cooking. Is what happens is somebody comes in, puts something on the stove to warm up, boil, whatever it is they're doing. And they get distracted by, going to the bedroom to change clothes. They've come in from work. So they put something on the stove in the kitchen. They go to the bedroom to change clothes. Phone rings, baby cries, doorbell. Who knows? What the distractions are. A lot of the distractions are those little electronic devices that we carry around in our hands all the time. And all of a sudden, 15 or 20 minutes has gone by, and you know how quickly that can happen. And smoke alarm goes off, and they go running down the hallway, and the kitchen's on fire. And of course, by the time we get there, not only is the kitchen on fire, but it has extended into the sunroom or the living room or the adjacent bedroom or whatever the next room is. So if we could condition human behavior to stay in the kitchen while you are cooking.
I am too OCD to even step away from I will sit and watch a pot waiting for the water to boil.
Well, as somebody who has some OCD issues myself, I certainly can appreciate that. I think the world would be a better place if more folks were like you and me.
Right.
Be much more organized.
That baby's just going to have to cry because I'm watching this pot.
But it happens. We and again, this is changes that have happened in society. The accommodations that we make for folks who have various challenges have placed. That's moved the controls from the back of the stove. Now they're on the front of the stove. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can reach the controls on the stove. Well, that also has put them in a place where they're easy to walk by, lean against them, bump them. Dog jumps up on the front of the range to sniff the pizza box that you've come in and laid on top of the cooktop, and nobody's paying attention. Dog turns the cooktop on. I mean, you can find YouTube videos and watch them for as long as you want to watch them with stuff like that happen.
I was about to say, you sound like you have seen a lot of stuff.
I've been in this business a long time. It would be difficult for you to come up with something that we have not seen over the decades. But the point to make about the dog setting the pizza on fire that's on the cooktop is people need to understand. In the last 10 or 15 years, we've gone away from electric coil type, our grandparents' stove cooktop, and we now have these nice glass cooktops. They're smooth. Well, induction cooking may be our savior, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But if it's not an induction cooktop, if it's still infrared or it's still an electric cooktop that is not induction, and it's got that nice glass countertop, that nice glass top, it looks to a lot of people like an extension of their countertop, and that your cooktop is not an extension of your countertop.
So stop.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't come in and put your groceries on the cooktop. Don't come in and put the mail on the cooktop, the Amazon box on the cooktop. I mean, it is not an addition to your countertop. I don't know how else to say that. But you know, the great thing about induction cooking is it won't set a pizza box on fire. You know, you have to have a specific type of cookware sitting on the burner for an induction cooktop to heat it. So, and we have seen in the last 3 or 4 years a reduction in cooking fires, and it may very well be because of the proliferation of induction cooktops in America. You know, if we had been talking 5 years ago, I would have told you that 2/3 of all America's fires in the home begin on a cooktop, and for the most recent 10-year period that we have data, that number is down to about 50%. So something has made a difference, and I don't think it's a change in human behavior. You know, the reduction. The reduction in fires in America that has happened. You know, fires have been on a gradual decrease for about 50 years, but it is all due to code changes that have made our buildings safer. You know, it changes in electrical code, changes in, you know, sprinkler ordinances, not ordinances, but sprinkler requirements that are in some fire codes now in certain situations. That is what has led to a decrease in fires in America, not a change in human behavior. The counterpoint to that is as that gradual 2 to 4% decline over the last 5 decades has happened, again, referring back to that last 10-year period for which we have data ending in 2019, we see that 2 to 3% decrease in fires, but the fire deaths are up 24%. And it is because of the changes in, you know, these open floor plans and the fact that we have just stuffed our homes with things that began their lives in an oil well. I mean, you look at the chemical formulas for these synthetic materials that we are sitting on. You know, right now we're sitting on chairs. Don't take this knock, but I don't think these are real leather chairs. This is some kind of synthetic leather that we're sitting on. The cushions are polyurethane foam. Look at the chemical formulas for these synthetics, and look at the chemical formula for gasoline, and they look very similar.
Yeah, it's made from petroleum.
That's right.
A lot of this stuff is, yeah.
Best way to put out a fire. You know, you get a quick fire going in the house. I mean, obviously keeping a fire extinguisher handy or something like that. But any quick thoughts if you don't have one of those sitting around?
Well, so because I know that statistically speaking, the fire that we're talking about putting out is going to be on the cooktop. We always encourage people when they are cooking to have a lid on the countertop that is large enough to cover the biggest pot that they are cooking in, pot or pan. It doesn't have to be the lid that goes with that pot or pan, but it has to be a lid that is as big or bigger than that pot or pan. And if you just slide that lid on from near to far, as you slide it on, air is excluded, fire goes out. Yeah. If you have a fire in your oven, leave the door shut. Now, I can promise you, you know, air makes fire worse and water makes fire better. If you open the door to your oven, if you think you've got a fire in there and you do, and it gets a gulp of air, it is not going to be in your favor. So everything you can do to exclude air from fire is going to be to your benefit. You know, if you have a fire in a bedroom that is more than you can put out before you leave the house, and that's the first thing you need to do is get out of the house, shut the door to that room, cut the air off to that fire.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
In the class, you talked about something in the kitchen that you could put, like there was a tool, I forgot what it was called.
Yeah, a stovetop fire stop.
Yeah.
There are a couple of products on the market. You know, generally we refer to them as stovetop fire suppressors. But yeah, there are a couple of devices that they come in a couple of variations, a few variations. Some are designed to mount under a vent hood. If you've got a vent hood over your cooktop, if you've got a microwave over your cooktop, again, you can go out on the internet and you can find these things, but they are more or less, kind of an oversized tuna can that is filled with a high-grade sodium bicarbonate and a commercial-grade firecracker. So that fuse from the firecracker sticks out. You have these things mounted over your cooktop, and they do not work on heat. They do not work on smoke. They have to have direct flame contact to light that fuse to the firecracker. Firecracker fires, and that can opens and dumps that suppressing agent on the cooktop. It does not cut the stove off. If you have a gas stove, it does not cut off the flow of gas, but it will control that fire on the cooktop. So depending on what model you buy, they are $45 to $75 or $80. Most of them have a kind of a 6-year, I use the term shelf life because I don't know what else to call it, but, they've got about a 6-year expiration date. And I would challenge anybody to go, call your whoever's providing your homeowners or renters insurance and see if you can buy that kind of coverage for, what ends up being, $8 to $15 or $20 a year, depending on again exactly what model of the stovetop fire suppressor you buy. What I'm doing is dividing the cost by its shelf life, and it's always there. Particularly if you a lot of us have kids that are I've got a 12-year-old at home. She's starting to cook a little bit, and that those stovetop fire suppressors are. Good peace of mind for me to know that they are always there, whether I'm there or my wife is there or not. There's something monitoring that cooktop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what led you to go into the fire department?
I have never drawn a breath in my life when I was not around the fire service. I grew up in it. My grandfather was a firefighter. My dad was a firefighter. So. It just kind of came naturally to me. That's about all I can tell you about that.
Are you from Winston?
No, I'm from Plymouth. I grew up in a little town on the northeast coast. So, yeah.
How long have you been with the Winston Fire Department?
January will be 10 years that I've been here. Yeah, they hired me from outside in 2015. Mm-hmm.
So what do you think of Winston?
Oh, I like it. I really do. My wife and I both enjoy living here. My wife's family's from Southwest Virginia, so coming from the eastern part of the state, it put us closer to her family, a little further from mine. But that my only complaint, I would tell you that in terms of going places and having things to do, and I worked for the Raleigh Fire Department for 11 years, so I mean it's not like I haven't lived in other mid-sized cities. But there is as much or more to do here in Winston-Salem if you look for it. It's very conveniently located. If you want to go to D.C. or go to Atlanta or go to Dollywood or wherever it is you like to go on the weekend, you can truly make it a weekend road trip. My only complaint about Winston-Salem is it is a little bit further from salt water than I would like for it to be. But other than that, yeah, we're really happy here and enjoy it. Winston is it's kind of a big small town to me. We have the amenities that I need. I can go to the hardware store and it's a 25-minute round trip, and we have good restaurants and good entertainment and good education and good health care and all of those things. But we don't have. Your work week is not extended by 10 hours because you're sitting in traffic an hour or going to work and going home in the afternoon. So, and I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, somebody who lived in L.A. for a long time, that's one of the finest qualities. Is the way the city is laid out and the convenience of it, and you've got everything you want and everything you need, but. Yeah, super convenient. Yep. So do love that.
That traffic is a drag, man. It's, it is not contributing to the quality of life, in my opinion.
No.
So does the fire department have, a website with resources or anything that people
We do.
can-
We have a website. You can go, do about anything you need to do there. We do not encourage you to contact us through the website when you have an emergency. Call 911, of course. But, for public education, to access, one of the newest additions to the fire department is the Behavioral Evaluation and Response Team, the BEAR. There's, you do not have to, you can access them through 911, but you don't have to. They have a direct line that you can access BEAR for. BEAR is an alternative to law enforcement response to behavioral health emergencies in the community, nonviolent behavioral health emergencies. So that information is there about the BEAR team, how to access it, but information on our smoke alarm program, CPR instruction, the various public education activities that we deliver in non-emergency settings, child safety seat checks, fire station locations, scheduling a tour. All of that stuff you can interface with all of those things on our website. We also encourage folks, we have active Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook accounts. Please like and follow us there on our social media platforms.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you.
You can find out more about us on TwinCityTalk.com or Instagram or Facebook. Thank you, guys. The views and opinions portrayed by guests on this podcast are not necessarily those of the distributors and hosting companies. And if you love this podcast, that's great, but don't think about stealing it. Reach out to us and talk about the content because it is copyrighted.